A woman who made such an impression on all of us with her movies, her style, her substance, her spunk. Tonight, the world mourns the loss of Katharine Hepburn.
Katharine Hepburn was not just an actress. She was an institution. The sharp cheekbones, the crisp voice, the unflinching gaze. She was the embodiment of defiance in an age of conformity. 4 Academy Awards, 12 nominations, and a career spanning over 6 decades. But behind the brilliance of her poise and the perfection of her art lived a loneliness that even applause could not drown. She was Hollywood's iron rose, elegant, untouchable, but rooted in solitude. Audiences saw her as the woman who feared nothing, outspoken, confident, and immortal. Yet beneath the polished charm and fire was a heart bruised by loss, haunted by the ghosts of her youth, and scarred by the cost of her independence. Every role she played, from Jo in Little Women to Eleanor in The Lion in Winter, was not just a performance, but a fragment of herself, a silent confession of the wars she fought inside. As the lights fade and her era slips into history, one question lingers. How does a woman who had everything, fame, brilliance, beauty, end up so heartbreakingly alone?
Katharine Hepburn was born on May 12, 1907, into a family that worshipped ideas. Her father, Dr. Thomas Hepburn, was a man of science and reform. Her mother, Catherine Martha Houghton, was a suffragist, fearless and ahead of her time. In the Hepburn home, intellect and activism were dinner-table conversation. But love was expressed through principle, not tenderness. From childhood, Katharine was defiant, athletic, stubborn, and brilliantly curious. She cut her hair short, played sports with the boys, and scorned the notion of being ladylike. Yet her rebellion was not arrogance, it was armor. At 13, she found her older brother Tom dead by suicide, hanging from the attic rafters. That image would haunt her forever. She told the world it was an accident, but the truth, perhaps, was too unbearable to face. In that single shattering moment, her childhood ended. She withdrew from society, cut her hair, and even took Tom's birthday as her own, a symbol of grief disguised as strength. Her laughter vanished, her independence hardened. The girl who once ran wild in the garden became a fortress. And within that fortress, a vow was born. Never again would she let the world see her broken.
The first rebellion, education, and early struggles. At Bryn Mawr College, Katharine Hepburn began to rebuild herself, but she did not fit in. She was too blunt, too brilliant, too restless. The theater department became her sanctuary, a place to channel pain into performance. Yet, even there, she stumbled. Her early performances were awkward, her voice too sharp, her movements too bold for the soft elegance audiences expected of women. But Hepburn was not made for softness. She was made for truth. After graduation in 1928, she headed for New York, chasing the stage with nothing but ambition. The city was ruthless. She auditioned endlessly, often being fired within days. One director told her she was too proud. Another said she was too odd. But the oddness was her power, her refusal to mold herself into society's shape. She struggled to survive, endured rejection, and questioned her worth. Yet every failure became a brick in the foundation of her legend. Each no sharpened her will. One night, as rain poured over Manhattan, she walked home barefoot, her shoes soaked, her eyes blazing. I'll make them see me. And eventually, they did.
The star ignites. Breakthrough moment. In 1932, Katharine Hepburn stepped into Hollywood, a world that demanded beauty over brains and obedience over originality. She brought neither. Her first major role, A Bill of Divorcement opposite John Barrymore, exploded onto screens with a ferocity unseen in any actress before her. Critics were astonished. Audiences were divided. She was unlike anyone they had ever seen. Raw, articulate, commanding. By 1933, she won her first Academy Award for Morning Glory. Overnight, the girl who once feared she'd never be enough became the brightest star in America. But fame did not soothe her. She loathed interviews, avoided parties, and defied studio heads who tried to control her. She wore trousers in public, refused makeup on set, and rejected the Hollywood formula. To the world, she was a revolutionary. To Hollywood, she was difficult. Yet that defiance became her signature. Katharine Hepburn had not just arrived, she had invaded the screen, and the world of women would never be the same again.
The Golden Flame, Peak Career and Achievements. From the 1930s to the 1950s, Katharine Hepburn burned like a comet across the skies of Hollywood. Her performances were not mere roles, they were declarations of identity. In Alice Adams, she exposed fragile pride. In the Philadelphia Story, she turned arrogance into vulnerability. In Bringing Up Baby, she shattered the idea that women couldn't be funny and brilliant at once. But her career was not a straight climb to glory. By the late 1930s, she was labeled box office poison. Her independent spirit, the very quality that made her unforgettable, had made her unpopular in an industry built on compliance. Yet instead of surrendering, she staged her own comeback. She bought the rights to the Philadelphia Story, shaped it for herself, and sold it back to MGM, on her terms. The result was one of Hollywood's greatest triumphs and her rebirth as a leading icon. Over the decades, she won 4 Academy Awards, more than any actor of her time, from Morning Glory, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, The Lion in the Winter, and On Golden Pond. But it was never about trophies. For Hepburn, acting was an act of survival, a way to keep the ghosts at bay. She transformed pain into art and independence into legend. Her voice became a symbol of female self-possession, her stride a manifesto. She was not the damsel, she was the storm.
The Hidden Heart, Personal Life and Challenges. Behind the spotlight, Katharine Hepburn lived a life of paradox, fiercely private, yet deeply emotional. Her greatest love was Spencer Tracy, a man as complex as she was. Their affair spanned 26 years, but it remained hidden, shadowed by secrecy. Tracy, a devout Catholic, never divorced his wife, and Hepburn, despite her strength, accepted the role of the silent companion. To the world, she was unbreakable. In private, she loved with quiet desperation. She cooked for him, cared for him through illness, and watched him slip away before her eyes. When he died in 1967, just days after they finished Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, she vanished from the public eye. I never watched that film again. Too painful. But her challenges went beyond love. Fame isolated her. Her independence, once her shield, became a barrier between her and others.
She never had children, by choice, yet not without regret. In later interviews, she admitted, "I was too focused on me. I chose the work, and the work was lonely." In the silence after Spencer's death, she confessed to a friend, "I don't think I was ever really close to anyone." The woman who had conquered the world was in truth at war with her own heart. The battle with time. Later years, decline. As the decades turned, the world she once ruled began to fade. The studios that had once bent to her will were gone. The stars she had shared screens with were memories. Yet Katharine Hepburn refused to fade quietly. She continued acting well into her 70s and 80s. Her performances in On Golden Pond and Love Affair carrying the same fierce intelligence that defined her youth. But time was merciless. Her health deteriorated. She developed a neurological tremor that affected her voice and movement. Still, she faced it with grace and humor. "I shake, but I'm still here," she said in one interview, her trademark laugh breaking through the fragility. The aging process, the loss of beauty, of energy, of friends, became her final test. She outlived nearly everyone she loved. One by one, her era's greats disappeared. Tracy, Grant, Davis, Stewart. And still she remained, a living monument to a world gone by. The long goodbye, final years and reflection. In her final years, Katharine Hepburn withdrew to her family home in Old Saybrook, Connecticut, the same place where she had once found peace as a child. Visitors described her as sharp, witty, but distant, as if her body remained in this world while her spirit lived elsewhere. Reporters would ask about her legacy, her fame, her records. She'd wave a frail hand and say, "It doesn't matter. It's all yesterday." But there was still a quiet pride, the satisfaction of a life lived on her own terms, however lonely those terms became. Even as her health declined, she refused pity. She said, "Death will be like a door. You open it and you're gone." In 2003, at the age of 96, Katharine Hepburn slipped away peacefully in her sleep. There was no spectacle, no grand farewell, just silence, as though the universe itself paused to salute the woman who had refused to bow to it. Her ashes were scattered near her family home, the same soil that had once held her laughter, her grief, her beginnings. The woman who outlived her era. Legacy and symbolism. Katharine Hepburn was more than a star. She was a revolution. She redefined womanhood in film, not as a reflection of men, but as an independent force. Her voice, her stride, her refusal to conform, all became symbols of liberation long before the word feminist entered the mainstream. She challenged the stereotypes of her time, inspiring generations of actresses, from Meryl Streep to Cate Blanchett, to embrace complexity, intellect, and imperfection. Yet, her legacy is also a cautionary tale. In her relentless pursuit of independence, she built walls no one could climb. She became both legend and loner, adored, respected, but never fully known. Even today, her image lingers not as a relic of the past, but as a mirror, reminding us of the cost of greatness and the solitude that often shadows those who live beyond their time. The curtain falls. Closing statement. Katharine Hepburn's story is not simply one of success. It is one of survival, of a woman who built herself from ashes and dared to live by no one's rules but her own. She laughed in the face of fear, worked through heartbreak, and left behind a body of work that glows brighter with every passing decade. But perhaps her greatest performance was her life itself, a constant balancing act between power and pain, love and solitude. She was the heroine of her own creation, the architect of her legend, and the prisoner of her own strength. As the music fades and the screen darkens, one line lingers. She was not a woman of her time. She was the time. And with that, the curtain falls, not on her memory, but on an era she defined, and the loneliness she carried to the end.